Welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. As always, right there is my buddy Jim, probably already smelling ham baking, or at least thinking about smelling ham baking, thinking about the Lions winning a fourth consecutive Turkey Day game. How you doing, brother?
Is it really? They've won 3 in a row?
Unbelievably, yes. They are going for 4 in a row on Turkey Day, which I can barely believe.
Well, since most people will be, everybody will be hearing this after Thanksgiving into the weekend. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving and food and football and family if you don't hate them. And, so I hope everyone had a good holiday.
Well, if you do hate them, I mean, F off. That's not right. Don't hate your family. So joining us this week are our good friends, James Littleton. He's been on the show several times. Say hello, James.
Hello, James.
He's over there. He'll say hello. And there he goes. And Adam Yark. Yark. Look, it's just Yark. You can say your full name if you want to, but everybody knows you as Yark. How you doing, brother?
Yeah. Good, man. How you guys doing? Happy holiday.
Oh, thanks, man. We have these two on because they just naturally tend to disagree on an awful lot of subjects.
I love James, though. Don't get me wrong.
And we consider both of them to be family, and we do love them both. And they love each other. In fact, this is a couple of friends here that actually have made good on bets. You know you're a decent friend if you've done that, and you don't have any reason to think you're going to run into them in the world. Okay? So, good dudes, but we're gonna have a good time in this show. All we're gonna do is talk about some different subjects. We're gonna see what sparks any kind of contention. If nothing else, we'll have some good conversation. At best, we'll have a few laughs. Taking an unserious subject a bit too serious for a minute. That's pretty much what I want to accomplish today. You guys ready to have some fun?
Yeah, and it's kind of what we do with the Pirates, an unserious subject that we take too seriously at times. So
yeah, and we're going to talk Pirates too. It's not just going to be Turkey Day stuff. We'll get some Bucco subjects in there. We really should start with a basic one. Let's just get one off the bat. We might not even disagree on these. That's not a prerequisite. Is limiting shifting really going to change things in baseball? I've looked at the stats that in the minor leagues, it marginally affected left-handed hitters. I think we're seeing a trend online where a lot of people think it's going to look like a whole new game next year. All of a sudden, all these lefties that had like a 615 OPS are going to instantly get like a 730 next year from all the balls that are just going to rocket through that hole. And James, I'm going to start with you. What do you think? Is it really going to change anything?
Marginally. I believe it's just going to be a minuscule change. I'm a fan of it. I'm a firm believer in 2 people on either side of second base, everybody in the dirt. But I think this is just going to be the first step in a process of finding out how to add more offense. I know there's another one they tried in the minors where they do the pie method at second base. And so I think that'll be the next thing they do.
It makes sense. I mean, Yark, I know that you think they're going to hit probably about 60 or 70 more home runs next year, but that doesn't have a lot to do with the shifting. So, in all sincerity, do you think this is really going to change the game?
I can see. I don't think it. No, I think marginally with that hole. I think the more hits that will fall will be the ones from that deep second baseman. That's like a liner
bloopers or the little liners over. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Jim, what do you think? We've never really talked about this.
No, I don't think we have, Gary. We haven't dove into this. You know what? I will say this: if there are some huge swings, my God, the Pirates should be in good shape because we have lefties we have lefties 1 through 19 through the order somehow. So, but no, like, you know what? People do seem to be pretty like, at least the vibe I get that some people are expecting like big changes. I don't see it. I think teams are going to find creative ways to combat it. And I'm looking forward to that just as much as seeing what actually the hitters do. I want to see defensively how that looks. And
I've heard everything though. Like I've heard because of this shifting, it's that much more important to have a really good defensive first baseman. People have used it as an excuse for both getting Choi and this other dude they just picked up from Florida the other day. I mean, in all sincerity, a defensive first baseman, like a really rock solid defensive first baseman, I have now heard as the conspiracy theory for because of shifting, have to have it. And it's suddenly going to take O'Neal Cruz and stop him from throwing it 20 feet over the head of the first baseman into the stands. And magically, every one of those is going to get caught. He's going to be a Gold Glover next year because of how good the first baseman is. What do you guys think of that? I mean, defensively at first base, how important is that? Well, I love first baseman. I want a good one. But it's still not a premium defensive position, right?
It's not. Let me start there because that's my position. And
if Jim's going to get snooty, it's going to be about first base.
It really is. It really is. I don't know a lot about a lot of things in life. I know about first base, and I apologize, guys. My shoulder's been killing me for like 2 or 3 days. So if you see me rubbing on this thing, and I'm not going to be ready for spring training, I don't think. But no. Look, what I would be telling O'Neal Cruz at shortstop is, listen, who's ever over there, give me a chance. Just at least put it in the dirt. Like, I can't do anything for you if it's 15 feet over my head. But you put it in the dirt, you give the guy a chance over there. I think it's going to help the Pirates twofold, just in the sense of, A, yeah, the shifting should make it more important. And B, just we've got O'Neal Cruz has a tendency to get a little wild with his throws. And Castro can be a little bit wild sometimes too. So I just think in general it's going to help. Forget the shifting part of it. I mean, if that's part of it too, great. But look, there was some debate about Choi, right? Going back and forth with people about whether he's a good first baseman.
Sure.
I mean, he doesn't have a ton of range, but I think if you put it in front of him, he's going to field it. He's going to field the ball, and he's going to make some pretty nice stretches and scoops over there.
And as good as he is, Lewin Diaz is even better, right? He's an even better defender over there at first base. Mm-hmm. And Yark, that's why you love the signing so much.
I do. I don't mind it. I do. I think he needs at least a bigger target. You're throwing to a 5'8" Chavez all last year. Couldn't have helped, Just a bigger target, a better glove will help him, and any help for that guy is a bonus. I mean, they need to hit it first base, obviously. You have to be able to hit.
I agree with that, but Jim, you can go ahead and tell him, James, you can go ahead and tell him why he's crazy for liking that addition, because I don't see it, but what do you think, man?
I love you, Yark, but if the only
love you too, buddy,
argument for this Lewin is he's better than Hoy Park, taking up a roster spot. That's the only argument, and that's debatable. I mean, the guy's got 350 at bats, and he's just been garbage in the majors. I mean, an OPS plus of 55. I mean, he's got a little pop, but he's got a.
He's got a lot of pop.
He's got
he just
a good
doesn't
glove?
hit the ball enough.
I mean, okay.
Yeah. A real good glove. I can't get around on it either.
Here's what I hate is it feels like we're just feels like we're always building cars out of spare parts. trying to put together a whole car here and get it to run and be as good as anything else that you could go out and actually buy that would be decent, and just again, it just feels like piecing together at something first base, maybe a little better piecing of it, but I mean, it is the same thing. So I'm just tired of that. I would have preferred you just go out and get somebody that could handle the position, as on a full-time basis, instead of trying to go back to some kind of a weird platoon like we always try to do.
It's frustrating, especially since a platoon isn't even logical with two lefties.
No, that's why it's weird to call it that.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, let's start talking about some other topics, okay? Back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports. Jim, James, Yark, we're just having a family duke out about a bunch of subjects today, and some of them are going to be silly, not baseball. We're going to talk Turkey Day a little bit here.
Ooh.
And I have to target my beloved partner, Jim, here in the very first subject, because I have to ask, if you don't have turkey on Thanksgiving, did you even really have Thanksgiving? Because Jim is of the belief that honey-baked ham is the way to go. Now, I don't know how he gets through Black Friday without the constant excuse of diarrhea stops while you're shopping from the turkey, but apparently that doesn't matter to him at all.
That's where online shopping comes in. You can do that from your bathroom.
I think we know Jim's opinion about ham on Thanksgiving already. Yark, what do you think? If somebody told you, come over to Thanksgiving, we're going to have ham instead of turkey, how do you feel?
I wouldn't be angry. We considered it. I had a small Thanksgiving for my dad and stuff today with my family, and then we're going to go to her sister's later on the weekend for a turkey and all that stuff. So for us to switch it up, I was going to do a ham or a prime rib, but I just deep fried a turkey today instead because it was faster.
That's actually not a bad idea if you have two to go to. So I'll sneak ham into this conversation anyway I can. But if you have two different ones to go to, unless you absolutely love turkey, it mixes it up a little bit.
Yeah, I get sick of it. It's just too much to do it,
Oh, this is sacrilege. Sacrilege. James, what's going on down in West Virginia? Is the turkey on the table or what?
If it was up to me, it would just be ham. But
yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
My wife insists on having
three
turkeys for 25 people, and one little ham. But yeah, I'm all about the ham.
So I thought I was going to outnumber Jim on this, and I have been horribly outnumbered. Ham is acceptable to all three of you. No wonder you accept this baseball team. Turkey to me, man, it's the show. I mean, I have ham on pretty much every other holiday, to be honest. So, I need the turkey on Thanksgiving. That's what it's all about.
Well, let me piss you off even further then, Gary, because I'll let my deepest, darkest Thanksgiving secrets out here on the podcast. But I'm not a huge leftovers person at Thanksgiving. I don't eat a ton of it. So I don't do well with reheated stuff. And turkey to me, that really, I don't like it cold. I know people like to do weirdo sandwiches and all that stuff. I'm just out, especially if it's turkey. Ham I can go a couple days on, but turkey, man, couple slices, I'm good. I want things I'll overdose on stuffing, first of all. So,
dude, you think you know a person. You think you know a person, and then you're I could hang out with this dude, and we get along real good for over a year now.
Yeah.
And now I've come to find out this dude won't even eat leftovers on Thanksgiving.
It's like when Jerry Seinfeld tells George to finally tell him his deepest, darkest secrets, And then George does, and Jerry's like, well, good luck with all that, dude, because you just scared the hell out of me. So, you know.
I mean, you guys don't agree on leftovers, I'm sure.
Oh, no, I'm all about leftovers.
Gotta
stuffing, and my mom's broccoli casserole. I hit a whole pan of broccoli casserole that my mom made from everybody's Saturday. I took it, buried it, and brought it home.
Well, tell us about this broccoli casserole, because that sounds delicious.
He put it in a West Virginia refrigerator. He buried it.
It's fair enough. We still beat Pitt. But...
So tell me about it. What is it? Is it just
it's
cheese
got broccoli,
cheese?
There's a little bit of sour cream. It's there's Ritz crackers crumbled up and sprinkled on top. Oh, it's amazing.
Man, that sounds delicious.
Yeah, I've seen it before. The smell of it, I don't think is something I could get past. The smell of cooked broccoli bothers the hell out of me.
Well, I also despise sweet potatoes in any form. I can't stomach them. Let's see what else.
Unbelievable.
I know, like sweet potatoes, yams. I can't do it.
Well, if you ever come over to my house for Thanksgiving, you can just bring McDonald's, because I don't have anything for you. I don't have anything for you to eat.
Honestly, give me mashed potatoes. Give me some stuffing. Give me some ham. I'd like some pie, like apple pie for dessert. I'm not a big pumpkin pie guy. So I don't know. Where do you guys fall on some of the standby stuff?
I fall like on the American side of it, you communist.
Well,
I mean, you don't like any of the Thanksgiving food.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not a huge, like I said, like it's, so I've had to find ways to kind of get my own, dinner rolling for that. So
let's jump back into sports real quick. Let's do another sports one. This is pretty general, but I think this probably has legs. Is instant replay good for sports? Like, I know that it's not going to go away now, and this is also very cliche. But I think back about games when I was growing up and how they would have changed if instant replay was involved, and how the results of games would have changed completely. And some of the games are things that I treasure the most. Like, it bothers the hell out of me, like, now that you can't have a turnover in football without instantly going to video replay. It bothers the hell out of me that you can't hit a home run right against the wall and have it immediately be a home run. It drives me nuts. I hate the stolen base now because of it. Every single aspect of it in sports, besides the fact that the Penguins are flawless at calling for it, bothers the hell out of me.
Tomlin doesn't seem to like them either.
No.
Just because he can't win them.
Yark, you go ahead and start, because, I mean, you're probably around the same age as me. It has to drive you nuts, I think.
I mean, I really don't. When you say it, like, I didn't think about it that much, because it just seems like the whole broadcast of, especially football anymore, it's almost just too much. It's commercial after commercial anyway, and even the telecast where you used to watch them walk up to the line, you used to watch the guys in motion. Now I see mostly the sidelines, the coaches, the stands, and then they get to right as the snap goes. I used to like to watch to see if they're running guys in motion, to see if there's a man-to-man or a zone, or who's moving around, and you don't even get to see that half the time.
And that's if it's not one of those broadcasts where they got the camera just flying around in a circle above them, like spinning all around, giving you vertigo. Yeah, I can't deal with that either.
It just, even all that just is like, it's kind of, like, we're getting old, so it's like, man, I miss the old days where you just see that and you watch the game, But yeah, I could see where it's just like, a lot of times it's just so unnecessary and slows things down, and just, in some human error is okay.
It's worse than college, I would say. College football and basketball in particular, the replay system in those two sports drives me insane. Constant stoppages. Everything is reviewed. I mean, just a normal hit, just a hit that looks bad is under review. It's not. It's not even like the result was bad. I mean, James, what do you think? You're older than all of us, I think.
I am older. I don't mind replay. I think there are ways to improve it. I think if you penalize teams for asking for a replay and it fails, NFL, you can give them a delay of game, 5-yard penalty. I think there are ways to maybe slow down how many replays are asked for. So, I don't mind.
That makes sense. I mean, so you're pretty much open to it, but
I don't
do wish that they would adapt the way that's being administered.
Yeah, I don't think somebody should lose a perfect game because the first base umpire is blind.
Yeah, there's always that aspect of it. I mean, I like some of the things it's fixed. I just don't like what it's done to the presentation of the game or the spontaneous joy of the game. I mean, how many times has the last play of the game happened and you have to wait for the referees to make sure that it was kosher before you actually get to celebrate?
It's how I watch football. I can tell you that. Like, I have a delay.
I don't even yell until they
yes
review the touchdown. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a delayed celebratory reaction. I'm looking for flags, and then I'm looking for replay. Yeah, I think, like, for me, the thing that I would take issue with in baseball, which I find to be go figure, baseball screwing something up, shockingly, but they're challenging plays and they're challenging everything in the play. You don't even have to specify what you're challenging. Like, if there's 2 or 3 things going on in the play, it's all up for grabs. You know, like, to me, that's insane. Like, you have to be able to at least specify what you want, and
at least narrow down your field of view.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
I mean, come on, like, you know, that part's, to me, is absurd. The thing that I really can't stand in football is, like, teams, which I don't blame them, finding a way to beat the booth to stop the play so they can review it, and every once in a while it works. They don't get the play stopped. They don't stop the next play from happening, and they beat, you know, the booth to the review. And I think it just happened in the Buffalo Bills game recently, that play on the sideline. Who were they just playing?
It just happened in the Minnesota-Dallas game.
Okay.
This past weekend, where the Dallas kicker kicked like a 60-yard field goal, and the refs came out and blew it dead, like, as the ball's in the air, and it's good. Like, so the play happened, and they went back and reviewed the previous play, which I didn't think you were allowed to do.
Yeah.
But they did. They basically said, okay, yeah, it was fine. And then they made him kick it again.
Probably because of what happened in that Buffalo game. They didn't. There was a play late on the sideline, and who did Buffalo just go? There was a crazy
Minnesota.
game, like 2. Okay, yeah, and the play should have been reviewed, and it wouldn't have been a catch. And I think it worked out for Minnesota. They won, so it didn't cost them the game, but it easily could have. And so then you get into that, right, Gary? Which is, so the next game they actually didn't beat it, but then they still blew it dead. I mean, we can't be having that, can we, guys?
I think what the funny thing is about replay is, like, it's in there to get everything right. That's the excuse. Let's get
Right.
everything right. And then you're not getting everything right. And now we have slow motion visual evidence that you didn't get it right. You know, so all you've done is made it worse. All you've done is made me notice your incompetence that much more. Like, I don't need to see that.
Well, let me throw this out there. What if we did something where, and I've put no thought into this, I'm just asking, what if it was just for the playoffs, postseason?
Oh, man, I don't know. Wouldn't that change the way you play? Wouldn't that change the way that you go about things? Like, let's say hockey.
I could live with it more in the regular season, But I would hate to see someone get screwed in the postseason. Is kind of the reason I was thinking of it. Not that there's not problems behind it.
Let's say hockey goes all season without it, and then they come to the playoffs, and all of a sudden replay is an option, right? And you can replay just about everything you want. Goalie interference is always the popular one. Well, refs are immediately going to be untested into what they're looking for. They haven't been looking at it all year long. So all of a sudden now there's this fresh play, and they're like, oh, yeah, that looks like interference to me. Well, you put those things in slow-mo, almost every one of them looks like goaltender interference. If you really, really want to, you can be like, well, he did kick his toe. Oh, he did push his pad. Oh, he did grab his jersey. There's always something, right? I kind of want them tested a little bit before the playoffs because every time they implement something new, they always call things too tight. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think too, in like football, what we've been trained to watch is like, or that the refs have been trained to do is like let the play go, and they wouldn't be doing that. They wouldn't have to worry about that. But in the playoffs, they would.
So if I had a time machine, I think that's what I would do is take away instant replay. I just can't stand it. And I think it hasn't been used right.
The stuff at second base is really bad to me. Like that to me was not the intended, on like, by God, I mean, not that we should have let it go or like you had to be within 2 feet of the bag. You didn't even have to touch it. You guys remember way back in the day when they used to let it slide. But I mean, we're talking like fingertip on the bag, stolen base stuff. Like, I just don't know that it was meant for that.
You guys ready for a baseball controversy that relates to the Pirates? I think we have to.
That doesn't narrow it down, Gary. Unfortunately.
All right, I'll start with Yark on this one. When did the Pirates' current rebuild actually start? And you know what I mean. You look around online, you've seen a lot of takes that this rebuild really started in 2016 and
1980.
The second they traded Kutch. So what do you think?
It was probably when they traded Marte.
So Ben Cherington was the beginning of this rebuild for you.
Well, I guess you could. I mean, if you want to include the draft picks like Swaggerty and Priester in with that.
I don't think they want to include Swaggerty.
But everything else, he basically.
So.
No, it's a strange situation for sure. But
so moving Marte was your button?
Yeah, and that would probably be the start of it. Yeah, but he had 2 years left. They could have did some stuff differently and try to build it different with the core they had at that time. Bell and Marte and Tyon and Musgrove and Frazier and Hayes was coming and. You could have added to that if you wanted to link, instead of blowing it all the way up.
Potentially. So I understand what you're saying. James, what do you think? When did this actually start?
I agree with Yark with the start of Cherington. I disagree that they should have tried to bridge it somehow. I think he's doing it his way. I wish people would be patient with it instead of offering up all these asinine free agent signings that they could possibly do right now to fix it. I have faith it's going to work. It may not work on some people's timelines, but I believe that when Cherington took over, he started a complete build from the ground up. Wanted to get his people that he wanted in here. Wanted to get rid of people that he knew were leaving no matter what, like Bell. Bell was leaving, regardless. He was going to go. And so I think it's going to work. I think 2025 is the realistic, really being competitive season to look at, but I believe it's going to work.
So James thinks that they'll be really, really competitive in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the high point or when the build comes together. He thinks they started right around the Marte deal. 2 questions for you then. When do you think that the rebuild started? And if James is right and 2025 is when this thing really emerges from the shadows, when do they trade Reynolds?
Yeah, well, funny because that you ask those questions and they bring up more questions, right? So, I think in fairness to Sherrington, and I don't know that I've always been super fair with him, just because sometimes you have had enough at times. But I'll say it's when he came in and when he took over. I mean, so I just don't. I can't backdate it further than that if he wasn't here and wasn't the one making some of the decisions. So to me, like I can't do that. So I'll say it's day one when he steps in the door.
The only reason I think it's fair to point behind it sometimes, which I don't, I actually agree with everybody here. I think it really was when Charrington came on, because I think he evaluated what he had. This is the direction he decided to go. But if you want to say that you think it started in like 2018, I can give you that, and I say that because I'm giving Charrington, Hayes and Reynolds and Castro and Cruz and all the guys he inherited. So, it's if I can give guys that were already here, I think I can give him, give this effort a couple extra years if I feel like it. I personally don't. I think 2019 is when it started, but it's just an odd point of contention that I hear a lot of people want to make. I've even heard the Archer deal was part of this rebuild, which to me was ridiculous. The Archer deal was literally them thinking that they had a shot and going for it.
All in.
I mean, I don't know how you could confuse that with thinking that was part of a rebuild.
Well, let me say this about and answer that second part of that question when it comes to Reynolds. And James may be right. I mean, we may be looking at 2025. But fellas, it's 2022. I mean, that seems a long ways off still. And I get saying, hey, you need to be patient. It's a long ways away. And if it really is 2025, then I start making a case. If it's going to be then I start making a case, then you move Brian Reynolds. And I have been steadfast up until this point of saying that I don't want to move him. I want to build around him. I think he's underrated. I know some people go the other route saying he's overrated. I don't know how anyone can say that in the lineup that he's been in for the last 3-4 years and how dumpy the Pirates offense is, and he still is productive. I mean, you're talking about a guy that still produces drives and runs. He can still hit for average. I mean, I don't want to call him a unicorn, but there ain't a whole lot of well-rounded hitters out there anymore.
Not switch hitters either. That actually can handle it from both sides. He's pretty unique.
So that's where I'm at on it.
So Yark, you always propose moving Reynolds. I don't know if you do that as a joke or you're just trying to get under people's skin, or if you really think it's something you want to do. But
no, it's just to throw it out, get an idea. Like I don't actually advocate for it. I'm not sure I want him past like age 32, though, honestly, especially at a high price. It's not my money, but whatever. It does affect the rest of the team. I don't want him 33, $20 million, declining, not a good outfielder anymore. The bat might not be where it is now, stuff like that. But if it's 2025, what's the point?
James is dying to get in on this. I see him just biting his lip and everything. He's squirming.
I want to clear something up. By 2025, I mean competing for a World Series title. I mean, I do expect to see progress this upcoming season, being competitive for a wild card the next season. I see progress, and I want to see that. And I know that Yark and I differ greatly on Reynolds. He's advocated to either trade him or just let him play it out and then let him go, which I'm not a fan of letting guys go for free that have value. That's just, especially for a small market team. If you're not going to sign to an extension, then trade him now. Then just do it. Because he's not going to be here when this team, or he will be in his last season when this team is ready to compete for a World Series title.
It really goes back to what we've said over and over again with Reynolds. Because of the way this is all timing out, even with your clarification, I still think you're looking at being in the middle of the apex of this thing right when Reynolds expires if you don't extend him. And while I understand not wanting him around until he's 32, not that I think that's ancient for the type of player he is. I actually think he'll probably maintain through about 34, 35. But regardless, if you give him a couple extra years and keep him as part of this thing, or at least if you want him to be part of this thing through like 27 or so, then I feel a lot better about where they are. But if I've got it hanging over my head that Reynolds is on his way out the door right when they get to that World Series contention spot, if you're correct, James, or even if that's just division title contention, that's, to me, a mistake, and it will be seen as a failure by everybody here.
I tend to agree with you on that part, Gary. I don't know how you could let it come down. You have to give yourself a couple year extension, something on the other side of that thing, so it's not all kind of converging at once. I mean,
think about the situation they'd be in. Like, let's just pretend we're in 2025. Everybody's right. They're in contention. Like, we don't know World Series contention, but let's say they're leading the division by 2 runs or 2 games. Okay, they're up 2 games in September or in the end of July. They're not going to be able to trade Brian Reynolds right then and there. They're going to have to keep him and let him walk. A team like this, letting a player like that walk, could set this whole thing back years. They won't recover from it. I mean, they just won't. That's why you're right. If you're not going to extend him, you move him. And that decision, to me, has got to be done this year.
Yeah, that's actually, Gary, that's what I was going to follow up with is, I mean, yes or no to you guys, like, are we in red flag territory when it comes to Brian Reynolds not having anything done yet? You know, does that make you seriously question where it is? I think it does me. I'd like to know, I think Gary says no. I don't know. Yark, James, what do you think? Is it weird that it hasn't happened? And does that tell you that it might not?
I don't think I'm in red flag yet. For me, next off season would be red flag when this ARB deal's over, or this extension that he did. But if they don't get anything done, then he's got 2 years left, and I feel that they would have to get rid of him at that point, no matter what.
So you're not worried at all. You'd still think it's going to happen.
I think I'm like in yellow. I'm concerned, but I'm not in red flag. I think they have time to get it done still.
Okay. Yark?
No, I don't think I'm not a red flag yet. I think that if it's not done before this season, it's really something you got to think he's either going to be out the door maybe at this deadline coming up or in the off season, because it's going to be getting too close for him to hit in free agency for it's going to be hard to get a deal done to make it worth him not just waiting those 2 years out.
Yeah, you're not gonna get somebody to tack on 2 more years on the end of their control.
Yeah, when I'm about to be a free agent for the first time at what 30, 31, whatever.
Yeah, it's what you work. It's what you work for, right? I mean, is to get to that point.
Right.
So I don't know, Gary. What do you think?
I think that if he's not extended before spring training is over this year, there's a very high likelihood that 2023 is Brian Reynolds' last season as a Pittsburgh Pirate. They'll have to move him in the off season for something else, and they'll sell it as they have somebody else ready to go. And that was part of their plan, but I don't think it should be. I don't think you move on from a player in the prime of his career right now.
He'll be a free agent.
This would be like trading. This would be like trading McCutchen, in 2014.
Yeah, that's a pretty good.
And I can't see how that functions. And again, I don't think with Brian Reynolds you get to 31, 32 and you start freaking out that he's falling apart. Awful lot of good players that are in their 30s. An awful lot of them, for real. Look at Toronto last year. Like, awful lot of good players that are in their 30s. George Springer.
I mean, there's
come on now.
There's a lot of.
We're acting far too often. Not this room, but as a fan, far too many people are acting like 33. A guy is like looking at Crips. I mean, like it's not like that. They could play for quite some time in baseball, especially now with the designated hitter. Now that we have a universal DH, we should be even less worried about that.
And McCutchen was kind of an anomaly when he fell off. Like, it shouldn't have happened. I think some people have PTSD from that too, where McCutchen should have had 2, 3, 4 more years of elite playing in him. It just didn't. It just, for whatever reason, it didn't happen, and there was a significant drop off. The last thing I'll say about Reynolds, or the last question I'll ask is why do you guys think that we do hear that with Reynolds, is that he's overrated? I mean, I see that. To me, I don't get that, but I see it. I don't know if you guys do or not.
You want the truth? My honest reason why I think that you hear that a lot?
I can handle the truth, Gary. I can handle it.
I think you hear that a lot because people are preparing themselves for their message post Reynolds trade. If you've built him up as overrated, then it's a lot easier when they trade him to say, like, good move. Right?
Okay.
I think you hear things like that a lot, especially like the Josh Bell hate was never louder than when everybody knew he was getting traded. Because everybody tore his arm apart. Oh, this guy couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Meanwhile, he had a pretty decent season after he learned how to throw sidearm. I mean, like, he started like making better plays and everything. Even I did it. I talked about his constant adjustments at the plate and how, like, he was never going to get consistent and all that stuff, right? Turns out, like, I don't think I've really been that wrong. I mean, look at how he was after he got dealt to San Diego versus before. Look at how half of his season in Washington went last year. It's not like I've been off about it. It's just everything got exaggerated because everybody knew he was going.
So you're saying it's more of like a coping mechanism for Pirate fans, essentially?
Yeah. It's a lot easier to say he's mediocre or he's going to age out than it is to admit that your team is too stupid to keep a good player.
Yeah.
In the prime of his career.
Yark, James, what do you think? Do you think people are fair when they say that about him?
No, absolutely not. I think that 2020 season probably was like a real red flag for some people too. They saw those numbers dip the way they did, and he was terrible. I mean, it's just no ifs, ands, or buts. He had a really bad year, and a lot of people did for whatever reason. COVID, short spring training, whatever was his, his home situation, whatever the reasons could have been. and I don't think that's the player he is, but that's obviously like I've seen people point to that. Like he was terrible this year. He was terrible for the first half this year, blah, 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 blah. And it's not fair. It's not fair. He's an all-star. He's probably a top 20 to 30 hitter in baseball, right in his prime. And you're right.
I mean, he's at least as good as John Cangelosi, right?
Well,
what do you think? What do you think, James? I mean, for real.
I think that a lot of casual fans just look at certain numbers. He's not a 30 home run hitter. He's not knocking in 100 runs. I mean, but he's got no protection in a lineup. Zero. And so, I mean, the kid is hit, and I can call him a kid at whatever because I'm in my 50s. But, I mean, he's hit 300 everywhere. His college, minors, pros, the kid can hit. It's just when you have zero protection in a lineup, it's tough. You're not going to see the best pitches. So I think that people see 260, 20-some homers, 70 RBIs, and they're like, oh, he's overrated. He's not really.
I'll say the protection is there. I think the losing is just as big a thing to have to push through year after year. Game, I mean, you're talking hundreds of games, and they have lost a boatload of games with Brian Reynolds. So to me, even that mental side of things is like to still be pretty consistent, be a productive hitter. Then you've got trash around you in the lineup. I just think people are selling that way, way short.
Well, this turned into the Brian Reynolds show, but let's take a quick break and we'll come back. We'll change up and talk about a couple of other things. Pittsburgh Sports. Jim, Yark, and James with me, and we're talking a little bit of Thanksgiving. We're talking a little bit of sports. Let's start with Jim's favorite subject that he brought up last week off the air about wanting mac and cheese with Thanksgiving. He said, is that right? Should you have mac and cheese with Thanksgiving? Does it belong on that plate? And my answer was, it's too much starch. I have enough with the potatoes and sweet potatoes and all that other jazz. I don't need mac and cheese, but I can appreciate it. And the reason I can appreciate it is because I have been to some Southern houses for Thanksgiving. And fortunately, they were prepared by Black grandmas. And when you have had a Black grandma prepare you some Thanksgiving food with mac and cheese and collard greens and all the good stuff, it's really hard to sit here and say it doesn't belong on a plate. That said, if it was my mac and cheese, no, it does not belong on the plate. But I would take that shit on any plate, no matter what meal ever. It's that good.
Well, full disclosure, I love mac and cheese. Do I look like a guy that turns down a helping of mac and chease? Probably
as long
not.
As it's not reheated, of course.
Well, yeah, I mean it's got to be fresh, that's for sure. But we haven't pulled out a poll in a while, so let's do it. The question was simple: is mac and cheese a Thanksgiving dish? Yes, no. That's all I put on there. Overwhelming response here, 282 votes. So people felt compelled to weigh in.
This is a national crisis. I mean, it has to be solved. So let's get to it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, here's where people stood on it. And of course, this would have more of a local, probably, I mean, people follow from all over, but I'm assuming it's more local. Is mac and cheese a Thanksgiving dish? No, 56%. Yes, 44%.
I mean, I agree with it entirely. I personally would never make it up here. Like I said, though, I can appreciate it. James, You're from West Virginia. Besides squirrel and raccoon, Do you have do you have mac and cheese down there on your Thanksgiving plate?
Well, usually my sister mother makes it, but no,
I love it.
we don't have mac and cheese at ours. We go with the staples, ham, usually mashed potatoes. But my wife has
Naturally.
carpal tunnel now, so we went with cheesy potatoes this year. Homemade noodles, my mom's broccoli casserole. My wife insists on having Brussels sprouts, which I could do without. And corn and a couple other small side dishes, but no mac and cheese here in at least northern West Virginia.
That makes sense. Yark, I mean, I know you do whatever your wife says, but is she a fan of mac and cheese on the Thanksgiving plate?
Well, normally I would say no, but we kind of did like a quicker, smaller thing just for my dad and today, and she grabbed the Costco one. We cheated. The Costco one you throw in the oven, which are very good.
They are very good.
It is,
but
actually.
Yes, it was on the table today.
So you did make it, and yeah, you're right. Actually, that Costco one is pretty darn good.
Jim's changing his mind on mac and cheese for Thanksgiving. As we speak.
Let me say this: like, I go like the au gratin way with like a lot of my cheesy dishes. So
I can hear him right now. Like, as soon as we shut this off, he's gonna go, Chris, what time's Costco close? We got to get down the Costco. I love it. Mac and cheese. Okay, so it sounds like your poll says no, but we're probably just a little too far north of the Mason-Dixon for that to be an accurate poll, right?
Pretty heavily Yinzer flavored in there.
I bet, like, because we're not in New England, if you said oyster stuffing, you'd get a resounding no as well.
I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, you would for me because I'd be in a hospital. But, okay, here's another topic for everybody, and this one gets touchy sometimes. Is there ever going to be a day where the steroid players get in the hall? I mean, I think we're starting to see a softening even from some of the language that Manfred has had recently on Pete Rose. Like, he doesn't think he should be allowed in the game, but that doesn't necessarily mean he shouldn't be allowed in the hall. I wondered if that was a statement that was almost starting to lay track for people to eventually forgive the steroid era guys a little bit. Pete Rose has some other issues about diddling kids, so I don't want to make it out like he should get in one way or another. I don't want to fight about Pete Rose. But in all sincerity, let's take a guy like Barry Bonds. He's the most obvious in the room. Does the league ever forgive him and let him in?
Does James Littleton ever forgive him and let him in? That's.
Oh, wait.
James, people can't hear your head shaking. We have two audiences here.
No. Baseball may. I will not. I'm just not a fan of rewarding cheaters. And I know people are going to say, well, he never tested positive and blah, blah, blah. The man admitted he used. He used.
Everybody knows he did it.
Everybody knows it, but there are
even the people that pretend they don't.
His trainer went to prison to avoid testifying against him. The man did roids.
I'd like to. I can imagine James going to the ear doctor with a nasty ear infection, and he tries to prescribe him prednisone or any type of steroid, and James insists on the homeopathic route. He is not putting steroids in his body in any way.
Listen to Jim giving James the Ryan Braun treatment here. Like, I'm going to bake in an excuse for you, James.
If Ryan Braun, if I ever thought he would make it, I mean, what he did to that poor official.
Oh, well, he's a disgusting human being.
Well, so's Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
Terrible.
I mean, if we're just going to keep disgusting humans out, I mean.
Barry Bonds was just an a-hole.
I mean,
but James,
is it ever going to happen? Then
I think
it sounds like
it will.
You think there's a possibility.
I think baseball is going that way with these committees. They need 75% of 16 people to get in this year. I personally would never let them in. Confirmed ones. I mean, you've got the Big Poppy, who people say he tested positive, and then Manfred said no, that test, or Seelig said no, that test couldn't be counted on because of issues. But we know Bonds Rafael Palmeiro, we know. I mean, I'm just a no.
Yark, what do you think?
Yeah, go ahead, Yark.
Are they ever going to let them in? And do you think they should?
I really don't. I'm fine with I'm fine with the steroid users, to be honest. I think it's hard even as a Pittsburgh fan to be anti-steroid if you like all those Super Bowls from the 70s. So those dudes were roided out through their face.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird for Pittsburgh people to really be anti-steroids. But I there's some guys that did it, and it was just Barry Bonds is one of the greatest baseball players that ever put on a glove, hold a bat. But I think they'll all get in. They already are starting to sprinkle in. Ortiz had his questions. Bagwell had questions. Piazza, there was the zits on his back or whatever they said about him, and these guys have been sprinkling.
I don't think I ever heard about Piazza's zits on his back.
I'm going to be embarrassed to Google that after the show because I've never heard that.
I think it was a thing. It's they said he's had acne, real bad acne all over his back or something. And back then, that was a big
dude was probably
tell for steroids.
Making out with some chick and some poison ivy.
You never know.
Next thing you know, I think at the end of the day, baseball is trending in a direction where I think they realize they kind of have to open the door. My problem really has always been it's gone on longer than the era. Okay? The era of steroids really is about the era of us assuming and knowing about guys taking steroids, right? But steroids were a problem long before that, even. You remember Lyle Alzado and all his trials and tribulations. And so it's been a part of sports for a while. Baseball just has a delineated line of when they started the witch hunt and when they felt like they had solved the problem, right? Baseball's the only sport that's done that. Baseball's the only one that said, guys started being assholes right here, and we were awesome and stopped them from being assholes right here. So everybody in between there, for the most part, you should assume first they were assholes. And then after that, we'll clear them for you. Basically, if we never accused them of being an asshole, they're probably not an asshole. That's what it's become. And there's a few guys that actually got caught, but there's this gross blanket of poop over the entire era of baseball, and they're the only sport stupid enough to do it to themselves. All the rest of them just ignore it.
Right.
Well, and I like to say I think, here's my problem in baseball. And I think a lot of times people come back to baseball with it because of the statistics and the numbers are so much how we judge everything in baseball, right? Doesn't necessarily count in football when you're Mike Webster. The greatness is measured in different ways, I think, at least from a statistical standpoint. Where I start hesitating about some of these guys is that when I feel that they're going to get in because they use steroids and that helped them get the numbers. I look at a Barry Bonds, and I mean, before he touched a steroid, he was already a Hall of Famer. So it does. I don't have to worry about that. Well, I mean, James, you can roll your eyes, buddy, but no. I mean, hey, Hey, in the 90s, he averaged a 30-30 for a decade. I mean, he was a Hall of Famer already. He already had how many MVP awards? He was a Hall of Famer. So, like, I don't have to worry about Barry Bonds, whether he deserved it or not. But whenever I take a look at, like, a guy like Mark McGwire, who was so home run heavy dependent, yeah, I start to get uneasy about it. And I don't even know if that's a fair way to do it, but that's just kind of how my brain starts to try to break it all down.
Yeah, it's a nuanced subject that often doesn't get nuanced, to be honest with you. Like, I really feel like baseball did it to themselves, created this era. The rest of them aren't like that. The NFL was like, oh yeah, a couple guys did it. We told them not to do it. We're testing for it now. When's the last time you heard somebody getting kicked out of the NFL for HGH? When's the last time you heard somebody on suspension for steroids in the NFL? They test for it all the time. Do you believe all those guys are Snow White?
Yeah, it's always some weird little supplement in a powder that gets them.
Right.
You know?
Do you hear about it in the NHL? You don't, do you? They all get tested for it. Do you hear about it? Do you ever hear about anybody getting suspended? Those guys are all perfect angels too.
Oh, hockey players? Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but like, in all sincerity, like, you look around the other sports, you don't hear about it. Baseball does it to itself because baseball thinks they're held to a higher standard. They think they have to show results. They have to pick guys that didn't pass the muster, right? They didn't have to take it to the direction they did. They didn't have to expose themselves the way they did. What they did is lifted their skirt and bared their ass to the world. And baseball didn't have to do it. They also didn't have to get in bed with the United States government so that the Congress had the right to drag them in and have those hearings where they were drumming up even more suspicion about players.
Wagging the finger. Yep. Rafael Palmeiro.
Yep. So, I mean, like, as usual, baseball screws itself, which leads me right into the next topic. And Jim, I'll start with you because I haven't started with you yet. At the end of the day, we hate Scott Boras for being really good at his job, don't we? That's the truth. If he was doing a deal for you, you'd want him too.
Yeah, I more than hate him. I despise that guy. But I mean, he has taken full advantage of everything about that is wrong about baseball and exploited the hell out of it. And he is, to me, the most despicable guy, but he's also a master at what he does. And he is, I don't think it's even close. He's the most powerful guy in the sport.
Yeah, as Jim said, James, Scott Boras is more than somebody who's just taken advantage of baseball's system. Scott Boras is somebody that's helped write baseball's system. And if you're going to let a snake write down your roles, he's going to leave himself plenty of ways to slither. So, James, at the end of the day, we hate Scott Boras for being really good at his job, right?
My mama said he the devil. Scott Boras, for me, is probably the worst thing to happen to baseball in the last 20 years. At least. Since he got A-Rod that deal from the Rangers, who were bidding against themselves. Nobody else was going to give that money. But he also hurt some of his own clients. I mean, and it's sad to see that what he did to, who was it, Michael Conforto last year? Talked him into not taking a qualifying offer, and he loses out on, what, $19 million just because Boras wanted more. He takes advantage of a lot of situations, like the whole Carlos Correa situation, where he had him sign a 1-year deal with an out so he would get money instead of Correa's former agents who had done basically all the work. So yeah, he's a snake, but you're right. He does. Baseball just lets that guy have so much power. I mean,
Yark, you wouldn't let Scott Boras give your wife a ride to the airport, I'm sure. So in all sincerity, what do you think, man? Like, you hate Scott Boras because he's really good at his job, but what do you think of him overall?
Oh, he is the worst thing about MLB. He's terrible. He's a scumbag. I think he was great at his job, probably around that A-Rod deal. But since then, like the things that James said, this happens a lot, man. Like he just is he's almost trying to destroy baseball system more than he is trying to help the players that he has. Like anybody can get these big deals for the guys he's got. You know, if you got Carlos Correa, you're getting a big deal. Any one of us could have walked in and got a 10-year, $300 million deal for that kid last year. Any one of us, and not saying that, he's not good at his job or anything, but he has turned way more into just looking to further his brand for the next guy than actually helping each one of his players. Like a guy like Pedro Alvarez, who would have benefited from signing an early extension on in his career. He's out of baseball in a couple years because he insisted he was a third baseman. Then he insisted he was a first baseman. After he did that whole kerfluffle with the draft signing.
It's a really good point, York, too. Like what you said is he's getting these big deals, but he's also going out of his way to make sure he can destroy baseball as much as he can, and all these things that he feels are inconveniences and things that get in the way of what he wants to do. So he's working it from both ends on that. So that's easily 50% of what he's doing. He's getting rich regardless.
Oh, but he's already mega rich. He's worth $500 million or whatever at this point, or something.
And he'll retire, and somebody will take over for him. But it's just you have to think that that's why he's been so dangerous for the game, because he's not just somebody that can walk into a room and get money for an obviously good player. He's somebody that has convinced people to pay for people that are 32 years old, and we all know that's too old for baseball. It's changed the game, and it's funny to give an agent that kind of power in a sport. I just think that the NFL has headed that off at the pass several times. They've had agents try to infiltrate the ranks as far as their negotiations go too, and they put the kibosh on it pretty quickly. So
Rosenhaus.
Who was T.O.'s?
Rosenhaus.
He was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of players had Rosenhaus too, but Rosenhaus fell back in line because he realized the machine was bigger than he was, and he was going to get crushed. And
I was just going to add too, Gary. What was it? We did a show, and Boras spoke at something, but it was for Major League Baseball.
And he was at the GM meetings.
Yeah, I'm like, what the hell is he doing there?
Yeah.
Like, why are you letting this guy, like, your guest speaker in the evening is Scott Boras? Like,
right.
How does that even happen?
I just pictured him, like, looking at some of the lower level teams, like Charrington, going like get your friggin' shine box. Because there's, he's looking down his nose at them. But
bizarre. Yeah. Baseball's bizarre.
Absolutely. Guys, this was great. I think this was a perfect tune-up for Thanksgiving, and now that I'm done recording on Wednesday evening, I know this is coming out on Saturday, I'm going to go and get tuned up so that I can cook a little bit lubricated.
Good boy.
But, hey, thanks for being on with us, guys. This was really fun. James, always appreciate what you have to say. Really do look forward to hanging out with you and talking to you every chance I get. You're a good dude, man.
Thank you, sir.
And Yark, thanks, brother. I always appreciate it. I know it takes time away from everybody. Tell your wife I'm sorry for taking from her birthday. Somehow you got presents on her birthday. I don't understand that.
Yark
I don't
is.
know either.
I don't even want to know
what
the
happened.
price you're going to have to pay
The
when
dogs
you
were
walk up
barking,
those
and all of a
stairs.
sudden I got these nice cups.
I mean, you walk up those stairs, you might have to defend yourself
going
with
back
that
up.
thing. You don't even know.
The beer's down here. I'm staying.
But thanks for coming on, man. You're always
Yeah,
you're always
guys.
good and fun to talk to.
No, thank you guys. Happy
Turkey
Thanksgiving to all
Day,
you
Jim.
guys.
Enjoy your ham. Enjoy your
I
kid,
will.
family.
I certainly will enjoy that ham, Gary. Thank you for saying that.
Well, if you have any leftovers, instead of just disposing of them, I'll eat them.
Yes.
I like leftovers.
Yes.
I'll make ham sandwiches. I don't care. So do whatever you got to do.
Don't sleep on that honey baked ham, though. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Is.
All right, hey everybody, thank you. That's Pirates Fan Forum for this week. Again, happy holidays. We'll be back next week.